Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. We have very active lifestyles. It's not all wandering the countryside aimlessly or scaring passing motorists. And we all love a good cup of joe. And there's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. Bold, robust, delicious. It's coffee that can wake the dead. With over a dozen different roasts and flavors, Deadly Grounds can satisfy the most finicky of coffee addicts. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Persons under 18 will not be admitted.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to another kick-ass episode of Still Toking with. You already know who I am. And, yeah, I'm super psyched about tonight's show. We had a hiatus last week, but we're back, as you can see. Our guest tonight is coming to us live from the UK. So it's like super fucking late there. And hopefully we can get through the show without him nodding off on us. But the subject matter is just one that I think we really needed to touch on tonight. But before I go any further, let me bring in the man that brings Flashy to the Flash, Mr. Jeffrey Mark.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. North America and South America and London. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm frothing at the mouth here to talk about this because
I love your hat.
Well, thank you so much. It matches the shirt, and
well, it matches the show.
And it matches the show. It does. And special hello to Jeff Holman, our third party who is on vacation this week, and we miss him, and we'll see him next time around. But today we have one of the most interesting people in the world to speak with. I have always been an animal advocate and worked with Doris Day's group, and my friend Joanne Worley has Actors and Others for Animals, and wonderful Betty White, who I worked with, did so much. But I don't know anyone in the world who has done so much for the advocacy of animals, especially to stop the trophy hunting nonsense of these glorious creatures. He's written a trilogy of books. He's gone undercover. I have so much respect for this man. Won't you please welcome to Still Toking, Eduardo Goncalves.
Hi, how are you?
And thank you for staying up late in London.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure to
Yes.
be on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, muito obrigado, because he is originally from Portugal.
That's right. Very good indeed. Good accent as well, Jeffrey.
I learned the hard way. I can
He practiced all week.
I can say thank you in about 17 languages from traveling around the world saying thank you to audiences, but especially to you, sir.
You see these yellow stickers behind me?
I do.
So my wife is learning Portuguese. And
Oh.
so the way she remembers, she writes down, words, and she puts them up and puts them everywhere to try to remember what they are. Our house is completely covered with these yellow Post-it notes.
Well, the best way to learn is to immerse yourself. So good for her.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
How long have you guys been married?
Well, actually, we're just coming up to our second anniversary. But we actually knew each other as teenagers in college, and we were together for a while, and then life took us in separate directions, and then very recently we came back together. It's quite a story.
Bon anniversario.
I have the same style story.
Yeah.
I was married. My wife now was married. We both had children. We were together, good friends in high school.
Yeah.
And separate ways. And then 18 years ago, we reconnected. Both got divorced, reconnected, and we've been married for 18 years.
Wonderful.
I'm a widower. I masturbate.
Oh, really? Already off the tracks. Oh my word.
Look, the topic tonight is so serious. I thought a little levity is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
You're right. And a lot of times my backdrop represents the style of show. Normally something like this would be, it's a horror show. They have a horror actor or something. No, this is because the bloody hands represent something different this evening. So, Eduardo, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah. So you might remember almost exactly 10 years ago, there was a lion called Cecil that was shot by an American dentist, a guy called Walter Palmer from Minnesota. It was an absolutely huge story all around the world. And people kind of thought, what the hell? People are still shooting lions for sport. I mean, what's all this about? We thought this had died out, when the British Empire folded, or, maybe this disappeared in the 19th century. No, people got this big wake-up call. And actually, just a few days ago, there was a shooting of another lion that was also a radio-collared lion. So it's part of a research study called Blondie. And so people, again, were kind of, hey, what? Now, what's been going on is that for the last few years, I've been undercover inside the trophy hunting industry, because I wanted to try to find out what is the truth of what's going on. What's the scale of it? What are people shooting? How do you even become a trophy hunter? Where do you do this? How do you buy a trophy hunt? But I also wanted to understand who these people were. And so basically, I went undercover. I joined Safari Club International, which is the world's largest trophy hunting club. And together with a colleague, we contacted hunters. We contacted the CEOs of companies that sell trophy hunting holidays. We corresponded. We spoke on the phone. We met. We went and visited their trophy rooms. We went and visited the workshops of their taxidermists. And we went to the estates, which they were leasing, where you can go and shoot giraffes and elephants and all the rest of it. And so I brought out this trilogy that you mentioned in your book. And it had to be a trilogy because there was so much to tell. And so there's one book which is called 20 Elephants in 75 Minutes. And that's about the world's top trophy hunters. These are the guys who've killed the most animals. And in some cases, they've killed animals in absolutely extraordinary numbers. Then there's another book which is Shoot One Lion, Get One Free. and that was about the hunting companies, the industry, how you get, the people that you buy these holidays from. And the last one is called Mainlining on Heroin, and that's very much about the British industry and British hunters, because trophy hunting originated with the British. It was them that exported it to Africa, exported it to India, and later introduced Americans to it after the First World War. And particularly with Theodore Roosevelt, and they provided him with a luxury train where he could, after he stepped down as president, could spend a year with his son traveling around Africa shooting, hundreds and hundreds of animals. Literally, he'd sit on this front of the train in this special chair that they'd made for him, and he would shoot an animal from that chair. They would stop the train, he would collect the body of the animal, and the train would continue. And so I found out, well, some things which will shock, I think, a lot of people. One is that, yes, we heard about Cecil 10 years ago, and it felt as if it was like a one-off, this kind of aberration of a single individual. That was kind of the way it was reported because it was such a shock to people. Well, here's a fact that I think is going to knock you sideways. Since Cecil was killed a decade ago, trophy hunters have shot another 10,000 lions. Now, just to put that number into some context, so Lion Aid, which is a charity which researches lions, supports lion conservation, it's just produced a study, and it's trying to work out how many lions are actually left in Africa. Well, their conclusion is there's 13,500. So 13,500 lions left. The collapse in lion populations is absolutely extraordinary. In the 1970s, scientists reckon there was around 200,000 lions. So in just the space of 5 decades, the population of lions has collapsed by around 90% or more. And now, going back to Cecil, he was part of this study. That was why he had a radio collar on him. It was Oxford University in England that was doing this study. They were basically trying to work out what's happening to lions. Why are lions' numbers going down? What's the biggest cause of lions? Well, perhaps not surprisingly, that study found that trophy hunting was the biggest killer, the biggest single cause of lion mortality. And in fact, it led to lion trophy hunting being banned in a number of places, including Zimbabwe, where Cecil was shot, and Zambia as well. But then, of course, the hunting industry lobby came along and said, whoa, 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 you can't do this. And the bans were lifted. So 10,000 lions in the last decades, but it's not just restricted to lions. So tens of thousands of animals, many of them endangered species, are shot every year. So it's elephants, it's rhinos, it's hippos, it's leopards, it's cheetahs. Cheetahs are the most endangered big cat in Africa. There's 6,500 cheetahs left. It is perfectly legal to shoot a lion or a cheetah for sport, despite how endangered it is. So that's one of the sort of the big headline findings. But when you then start digging down and meeting the individuals who are behind it, there are some trophy hunters who are single-handedly killing thousands of animals. So there was one guy, he's called Tony Sanchez Areno. He shot over 4,000 animals, of which 1,300 were elephants. He shot 340 lions. He shot hundreds of leopards and rhinos and buffaloes and other animals. He's even shot a couple of gorillas. But he was absolutely adamant that he only hunted in moderation. Those were the words that he used. There's another guy called Ron Thompson. He has shot 5,000 elephants. And he shot a lot of lions and other animals as well. Another guy, Marcel Gomez-Sequeira, I mean, he said, look, actually, I've lost count of the number of animals I've shot, but I know it's in the thousands. And in fact, he bought 4 private jets so that he could be constantly flying around the world, shooting animals everywhere. And he's got everything. I mean, he's got warehouses the size of airplane hangars full of the bodies of animals. There's another guy, Canadian, called Arnold Allwood, who spent 18 years non-stop shooting animals. So he would go to the big industry fairs in January, so Safari Club International, their big convention. He'd buy up a whole load of hunts there. He would then spend the rest of the year shooting animals everywhere around the world. His goal was to get at least one of everything that you could legally shoot. and he did this for 18 years non-stop. So, you know, we met with these people, we spoke to them, and obviously I didn't say who I really was. I said, I gave him a false name, and I said, look, I'm a trophy hunter. I've only done a bit of this and that, but I'm wanting to step up. Can you tell me what it's like? And they absolutely opened their hearts to me. And so there was one guy who was telling me about, you know, the adrenaline rush that he got in shooting the big African five. So that's lions, elephants, leopards, rhinos, and buffaloes. A guy who was telling me how he cried with emotion when he shot his first elephant. We went into the trophy room of a guy. He had 500 bodies and heads in there, including a polar bear. We went and there was a guy who was telling me about how he had this fun in the evening. He would drink a whole load of beers with his friends, and then they would go out and shoot monkeys out of trees. I mean, it was extraordinary. And then we went and visited the workshop of world champion taxidermists who, you know, he'd done lions and bears and hippos and rhinos and monkeys. We visited the estates where you can shoot these animals. So there was one, in fact, there was leased by a British company, and you can shoot elephants and giraffes there. And he showed us the rhinos he had as well. And he said, he joked to us that he once shot a giraffe there because he thought it was gay. So this is the quality.
Okay, now I'm going to say something.
Yeah.
I was sitting here angry already. Now, all right. It is very easy for us to sit here and talk about these people. And I've read, you know, people bragging, "Oh, I shut off the eye and blood spurted. Aren't I wonderful?" I don't use vulgarity on this show except to be funny. But it'd be very easy for us to sit here for the full hour and just say these motherfucking pendejos have a special place in hell for themselves. But I'll bet some of our fans and friends out there enjoy hunting or enjoy shooting or something like that. Help us let's turn this around. The psychology. I cannot fathom.
Right.
First of all, calling an animal gay. How homophobic do you have to be concerned that an animal looks what? He was wearing that the hippo was wearing high heels? It's ridiculous. But
he looked at him wrong.
What goes on in these people's heads? You've done the study, Eduardo, that they think that this is good and that killing is funsies. I don't get it. Help me to get it.
The psychology is really interesting, actually. And you're right to pick up on that because, we can talk about the numbers of animals killed and all the rest of it and whether it's a threat to conservation and so on. But there's been reports about, the numbers of animals shot by trophy hunters. But what I actually wanted to do was something a little bit different. I wanted to get inside their minds. I wanted to try to explain to people why they do what it is that they do and how it makes them feel. And this is kind of what I went and asked them about. And once I said I was a trophy hunter as well, then they absolutely embraced me like a long lost brother and opened their hearts to me. And they revealed, the first thing to say is this has got absolutely nothing to do with hunting for food, right? No. Hunting for food is a necessity, it's subsistence, it's whatever. This isn't what these guys are doing. They are killing for kicks. And there were two words that kept coming across in their accounts to me time and time again. One of them was adrenaline. The other was addiction. So they said things to me like, actually, I made a couple of notes here. So there's one guy who says, look, the adrenaline starts coursing through my blood when I see the animals. Another talked about shooting an animal and saying it was the most emotional moment of his life. The guy who shot 5,000 elephants, he's written an essay where he talks about the sheer exhilaration that he feels, that he experiences when he sees these animals crumbling to the ground. They talk about the fire of desire for trophies, about it being an adrenaline-induced experience, and so on. And mainlining on heroin, the third book, that's actually a quote from a trophy hunter, a British trophy hunter, who shot lions and elephants and rhinos and other animals and leopards. And he was asked, what What is it that drives him, and why does he keep doing it? Because he's been doing this for like 50 years. And he said, it's like mainlining on heroin. Once you do it, you can't stop. You can't get off it. But there was something else actually that that really, really, really worried me. And before I tell you what it was, I'll just tell you, actually, there's a British psychologist, Professor Professor Jeff Beattie, who's done some really interesting books about different groups of people who are very, well, for example, he's written about the psychology of terrorism. So he's literally met with terrorists and tried to get, mainly from Northern Ireland, where obviously in the UK, there's been a big issue for years, and to understand their minds and what drove them, what motivated them, and so on. And he's also written a book about the psychology of trophy hunters. And I was speaking with him at an event in the UK Parliament, and he got up and said, "You know what? I've met with all of these groups. I've spoken with them. I've met them. The people who scare me the most, it's not the terrorists, it's the trophy hunters." One of the things that I found was that not only were they getting pleasure from the kill, it was actually that they were getting pleasure from the harm as well. So trophy hunters are typically really bad shots. They're amateurs, right? They're not people who have to show any aptitude. They've not got any certification. They've not had to pass any tests or anything at all. They're amateurs. And because they're shooting big and usually quite dangerous animals, they're shooting from a long way away. So 200 yards or even further away. There's this guy in Africa who's just been killed, actually, hasn't he, by a buffalo that he was trying to shoot, and ended up the buffalo killing him. Good. And so they try to keep their distance, equaling it out a little bit, isn't it? And also they try to shoot in a particular place in order to not spoil the trophy, so that it's not hard for the taxi. They don't want a great big bullet hole in the head, in the middle of the head, because that makes it pretty hard for the taxidermist to produce an impressive trophy. And so they're trying to shoot usually sort of heart-lung shots or through the shoulder, etc. Now, if you're an amateur shot, you're shooting from over 200 yards away. Animals don't necessarily keep still all the time for you. There might be a gust of wind. So what tends to happen is that, and studies by US agencies have repeatedly shown this, the majority of animals shot by trophy hunters aren't killed quickly. They're not killed cleanly. They're not. They suffer horrendous injuries, like Cecil did. So Cecil, who was shot by Walter Palmer, and he was shot with a bow and arrow. Why? Because Walter Palmer was trying to win this special prize, and I'm going to come onto the prizes in a bit, a prize from Safari Club International for shooting big game animals with novel weapons like bows and arrows. And it offers prizes for people to shoot big animals with revolvers as well. You can get a special place in the record books, which they have. They have a record book for example, shooting a hippo with an air gun. So he shot Cecil. He didn't kill him. He injured him. Now, he had the choice. He could have put Cecil out of his misery there and then by shooting him dead with a rifle. He chose not to, because if it had done that, it would invalidate his claim to the prize. So he left him. He said, "I'm going to go back to camp, going to have dinner, have a nice sleep, come back in the morning, the lion will be dead and I'll be able to pick up my prize." He goes back the next morning. Well, Cecil isn't dead. Cecil's moved. He's crawled under a bush, and Walter Palmer can't actually see him, but he can hear him because Cecil's lungs are filling up with blood. So he's making this awful, awful rasping sound as he's literally drowning in his own blood. Anyway, he shoots him eventually with a second arrow and he's killed. So the majority of animals that are shot by trophy hunters are badly wounded. And time again, when you read, for example, the industry magazines and the accounts that people give, and also these were what they were telling me as well, they then have to try and follow the trail of blood to find the animal, or they follow the bits of broken bone and muscle which they find, or bits of intestines that are caught on the thorny bushes, and sometimes they don't find them at all, and the animal will then die a very slow and painful death in the bushes from sepsis and shock and all the rest of it. Sometimes they then bump into the animal a couple of weeks later whilst they're hunting for something else, and the animal is there injured and they see it again. Sometimes they'll kill it again. Sometimes they miss it again. So, so they have these prizes where, for example, and accounts. There was one guy actually who was talking about at the time he killed a puma, so a mountain lion. He did this in Argentina where they call them pumas. He killed a puma with a spear. So he had a pack of dogs. The dogs had chased the puma up a tree. And then the guy went and stuck the puma. And he was gloating about how he's being splashed with blood. And so they give these incredible accounts where they talk about the injuries that they cause. And they seem to take pleasure in that. I mean, a really sadistic pleasure. So, for example, I'll just give you a couple of accounts of lion hunts, which trophy hunters are given. So there's one guy, and this is a former president of Safari Club International. And he says, the lion's head snaps backward and explodes with smoke from my bullet. There's an Australian newspaper editor, again, talking about shooting a lion. I shot it through the left eye, blowing out the back of the skull. Yeah. And there's another one who says the arrow entered beneath the lioness's chin and took out her heart. And they're not saying this as expressions of regret or guilt. They are celebrating this. They are saying it in a sort of, you can hear the yee-haw in their voices when they're saying it. This is part of the great adventure. This is part of their prowess. Because at the end of the day, all of this is about narcissism. It's about, psychologists use a phrase, costly signaling. And they say trophy hunting is a form of costly signaling. What does that mean? To shoot a lot of big game animals, lions and elephants and all the rest of it, you've got to be really wealthy. You've got the cost of the hunt, you've got the cost of the taxidermy, you've got the cost of the shipping, you've got the cost of mounting it in your trophy room, you've got the cost of the awards that you want to put your name in for, of the entries into the record book. I mean, you're spending an awful lot of money. And this is a grotesque way of showing off to your peers how wealthy and powerful you are. It's like having a fleet of Lamborghinis. But obviously, this is all about blood. You know, people, or rather animals, creatures, living creatures have died in order for them to be able to exhibit their power and wealth and status and all the rest of it. But yeah, they get this horrible sense of achievement through the wounding themselves. Now, let me just talk about the prizes, because this is something else I think is really important to understand. So, trophy hunters aren't, one-off individuals. There's a community of trophy hunters around the world, and there's an industry which encourages and enables them to do what they do. So it encourages them, for example, through these prizes. Safari Club International has dozens of awards, and a lot of them, they call them inner circle awards, and they operate a bit like computer games. Like Call of Duty or Space Invaders, like we would maybe play when we were kids. We have different levels, and to get to each level, you have to shoot more and more animals. So, for example, let's take one of them. It's called the Hunting Achievement Award. It's got 5 levels. Level 1, you've got to shoot animals from at least 17 different species. Level 2, it's 30 different species. Level 3, 50. Level 4, 100. And level 5, 125 different species. Right. So not just 125 animals. This is animals from 125 different species. You think, wow, that's a bit of a tall order. No, there's over 300 hunters who've been given that prize, that specific prize for shooting 100 or 125 different species. And this is just in the last few years. They have dozens of these awards.
Eduardo, may I make a comment real quick?
Yes. Yeah.
First of all, you're an amazing guest. We're halfway through the show.
Right.
We've asked you one question.
Well,
and we haven't, because you are an amazing guest. Believe me, it's a compliment. If Betty White were sitting here, she would say, if they want an adrenaline rush and they want to win prizes about harm, why don't we parachute jump these guys into a pride of lions who haven't eaten for a week, with no weapons of any kind? The adrenaline rush of having the entire pride come after them to eat them would be amazing. It would fulfill their adrenaline needs. Right. And then awards could be given out for how many of their body parts are eaten off and they still survive. I think that's immensely fair. and fills in all the needs they're looking for, because what we're talking about are murderers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, listen, how about we make it pay-per-view and all the proceeds go to conservation? I would sign up for that.
I'll
Right.
sing the opening song for that.
Yes.
Listen, I'm going to take that one step further and say these adrenaline junkies. I mean, there's adrenaline junkies. They jump out of planes. They'll parachute off of buildings. That's great. Well, why don't we take all these guys and we'll put them out in safari and let somebody hunt them?
Yeah.
And you can get an award if you survive.
Well, it would be a lot fairer, wouldn't it? I mean,
Right.
As I was saying, these guys are shooting with high-powered rifles from a long way away. They're not getting close up to the animal in the vast majority of cases. Of course, you do have some exceptions. And this is, I don't know how much you know about the canned hunting industry. So this is where they breed animals, usually lions, but not only lions, tigers, leopards, sometimes even giraffes. Okay. And they breed them, they hand rear them, and then they're shot in enclosures. So they from a place they can't escape from. But of course, because they've been hand reared, they don't have the fight or flight instinct to run away. But even if they did run away, there's nowhere they could go. That's why they call it canned hunting, by the way, because it's in the can. The result is a done deal. You're definitely going to kill that animal because it can't get away. And so there was this one British hunter who boasted about shooting a lion from just 8 yards away. Like this was some great thing. Well, of course he had. I mean, the animal was probably thought he was bringing it dinner. We actually did another undercover investigation just a couple of years ago into the big cat breeding and hunting industry. So, they were, it was extraordinary. It's like they were factory farming these animals for people to shoot. And so it was different breeds as well, or different varieties. So, for example, and this was to cater for the trophy hunter who's got everything. So if you've already got, hundreds of animals in your collection and you want to get something that none of your peers have got, you go to one of these places in South Africa, you can shoot a white lion, a tame white lion. You can shoot a tame white tiger or a tabby tiger. Or you can shoot a liger, which is a hybrid of a tiger and lion. We actually managed to rescue a tiger cub called Sally that was being hand reared, and she was going to be shot by a trophy hunter. We managed to trick this particular operation into handing her over. We said that, look, we know a businessman who's wanting to get into the industry and he's looking for local partners. If you were to make a generous gift, like donate this lovely tiger cub, he would see you with very favorable eyes and want to go into business with you, and you're going to make millions. And he fell for it. And so we then squirreled this tiger cub away into a secret sanctuary. She's now got another tiger with her. That was a hair-raising operation. At one point, it seemed like that one of these guys had cottoned on, and he rang us. He said, "I'm going to go in and shoot this tiger right now." And anyway, we managed to get the tiger out. But they breed thousands of these animals, that are tame and that are in enclosed areas they can't get away from. But the other thing is that it is so easy to buy animals to shoot for fun, right? It's like there's one site in particular, a website. It's called bookyourhunt.com. It's kind of like the trophy hunting equivalent of Amazon or eBay, right? You go onto Amazon because you want to order, I don't know, a book or a CD. You go on eBay to buy a ladder or whatever. Okay, you go on to Book Your Hunt and you can buy a lion, an elephant, a cheetah, a leopard, a rhino. But you can also buy some really weird stuff. And so you can buy beavers or badgers, honey badgers, or seals, or skunks, or meerkats, or wallabies in Australia. In fact, in some places in the US, of course, they actually breed rare wildlife from Africa and other countries. So, for example, there's places in Texas around San Antonio. You can shoot zebras there. You can go and shoot kangaroos there. You can even go up in a helicopter and shoot wild pigs with machine guns. And they've got websites. right? Yeah, called, and they had these names like Hellebacon or Hogpocalypse. But you literally can buy an animal, even an endangered animal, like candy. And there's, and they advertise openly on the internet, the hunting companies as well. I mean, you could literally just Google cheetah trophy hunting, and a bunch of companies will come up on your website, and you go onto their web page, and it will give you the prices, it give you the different packages that they offer. It will have a menu of other animals that you can shoot as well. So you fancy shooting some zebras and some giraffes or some leopards whilst you're there, because usually they come as a package deal. So to shoot 10 animals for the price of $10,000, say, sometimes 20 animals, etc., etc. It is trading in full view. It is hiding in plain sight. And the offers that were being made to me, there was even one company that offered me the chance to shoot pangolins, right? One of the most endangered animals on the planet. And there are also states in the US and South Africa where you can shoot extinct animals. So animals that are technically extinct in the wild. So like the scimitar oryx, the Arabian oryx as well, both of which were hunted to extinction by hunters in the late 20th century, so not that long ago. But these guys, they managed to hang on to a few, and they breed them so that, again, in captivity, so that you can come and shoot an animal that technically doesn't exist on Earth anymore. By the way, both the Arabian oryx and scimitar oryx are said to be the origins of the unicorn myth, because when you look at them from side on, it looks as if they've just got the one horn. So the scimitar oryx comes from Central Africa. The Arabian oryx comes from mainly sort of the United Arab Emirates, and although it used to spread right away all the way through to sort of Morocco in one direction up to Jordan. But then just the last one was shot by a hunter in 1972 in Oman. But there's still a couple of places where they breed them, and yeah, you can go on these places and literally shoot something which has died out. Incredible.
May I ask a couple of questions, sir?
Go for it.
In your experiences, I'm asking for an opinion. Are we talking about human beings who, if killing other humans was legal, they would do that also because there's just something in their psyche that they are murderers, and this is the only legal way they can do it? Is that the psychology here?
Do you know, that's a really, really good question. And there's been quite a lot of research in criminological circles about this. And in places like the FBI, in district attorneys' offices, in understanding, is the enjoyment of killing an animal a red flag? In other words, a trigger. It could be that these people also enjoy killing people. And indeed, one of the reasons why certain animal cruelty offences, such as dogfighting, etc., are now classed as a grade A felony in the US, was they found that people who were engaging in those activities were also likely to be engaged in other very serious forms of crime. We actually, about when are we? About, nearly 10 years ago, I was involved in another undercover investigation. This was to do with dogfighting.
Yep, I was going to bring that up.
Right, and basically we found that, again, this was something that was going on. Not a lot of people knew about it, but it was going on a pretty big scale. And so together, actually with the same undercover guys that I still work with, we infiltrated the largest dogfighting crime gang in Europe. They were based in Bulgaria, but they operated throughout the continent. And they were breeding and selling and moving dogs and organizing dog fights. And there was prize money of $50,000 for a winning dog for a fight, et cetera, et cetera. And they were shipping them all around to the Caribbean, to the US, some of the southern states. It was going into the Arabian Peninsula, into Pakistan. It was everywhere. And during that investigation, actually, I sort of met quite a few interesting people in the law enforcement community in the US. So district attorneys, people high up in the New York Police Department, people in the FBI. And it was then that I sort of understood that they were looking at this with a particular angle, because they were finding that those people who were involved in dogfighting were also likely to be involved in human trafficking, in gun smuggling, and all sorts of other serious crimes. And so it transpired that this gang in Bulgaria that we'd infiltrated, and others that we were contacting in Albania and other places, they were also involved in other crimes. And so there were, for example, people high up in the New York Police Department who were saying, do you know what? We actually look for indicators, people who are looking, people who are involved in dogfighting, we know they're almost certainly going to be involved in other stuff. So we actually look actively for that, because often it's a better way, an easier way of digging out the really serious criminals than if we were actually looking actively for people involved in human trafficking and all the rest of it. They cover their track. But if you go for the dogfighting, you're going to find all this other stuff as well. So it's actually a clearer way of finding others involved in very serious crime. But one of the other things, of course, and there's been, again, research by psychologists working for the FBI, and they found correlations between trophy hunters and, that they were more likely to be involved in domestic violence. They were more likely to be child abusers.
Absolutely.
Because of their narcissism, their lack of responsibility, etc. But also there were actual cases of trophy hunters who were also serial killers. And I remember there was one case in particular, quite a famous case in the US, where there was a trophy hunter who would kidnap women off the street. He would strip them naked, put them in the trunk of his car, drive out into the middle of a forest, and then get this woman out of the car and say, run. And then he would give her, a 5-minute head start, and he would stalk her like he would stalk a deer or another animal, like he would hunt another animal. And of course, a lot of serial killers, they take trophies of their human victims, whether it's Jack the Ripper or, who would keep, bits of ear and whatever. They would keep those trinkets. And of course, a lot of people who we've heard of who have committed acts of heinous acts of mass murder in the US and the UK and everywhere else, they often started their criminal careers, if you want to call it that, with acts of animal cruelty. So the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the guy who did, or the Boston killer. There was the two guys who were responsible for the Columbine murders, the Columbine shootings. Yep. They were all people who were also involved in animal cruelty early in their lives. So it was almost like an indicator or a starting point, if you like. But it was the same mentality. That's the point I'm trying to get to. At the end of the day, it's the same mentality. It's the same, refusal to acknowledge that another being has value. It's not taking responsibility for your actions. It's denying. Anyway, it is the same compulsions. It's the same pattern of behavior. So, and this is why I say to people, look, this isn't just some woolly animal rights fringe issue, right? These are really serious. I actually, I started my professional career, if you like, in the law enforcement sector. And this is where I kind of first came across serious crimes being committed against animals, and what that actually meant, how serious that was in the overall scheme of things. And that was kind of what triggered my interest in later life, to explore these connections and to really try to understand, like I have done with this latest investigation, to understand what goes on in the minds of these people. Because frankly, they're very, very frightening people, and they are pretty dangerous people.
Which brings me to my next question, if it's okay, boys.
I guess
like anyone could stop me. You've mentioned South America, you've mentioned Africa, you've mentioned the United States, you've mentioned some parts of Europe, you've mentioned the Arab countries. Is this a cultural, are there cultures, because you haven't mentioned Australia or the South Pacific or Asia at all. Is this something that's unknown in these places, or is this kind of evil just across the board from your experience?
Very good. It is largely cultural, actually. So it's so 55% of all animals shot by trophy hunters are shot by Americans. So the second country in the list is Germany, and it accounts for about 5%. So Americans are, and we think about Africa as the place where everyone goes and where most trophy hunting goes on. Actually, the country that has the greatest number of exports of hunting trophies, so where foreigners go in to shoot an animal and take the bodies home, is Canada. Canada is way out in front, largely because it has such a huge bear hunting industry.
Right.
So Canada accounts for, I'm trying to remember the figures off the top of my head, but I mean, something like a third of all hunting trophies come out of Canada. And you can even shoot polar bears in Canada, by the way. So even the US and Russia have both banned polar bear trophy hunting because we know it's an endangered species. We know it faces all sorts of threats and climate change and so on and so forth. Canada's the one place where you can still legally go and shoot a polar bear for fun. And there's also a commercial skinning industry linked to that. So it is largely, so it started with the Brits, like I said before, and the Germans and the Spanish have traditionally been big markets as well. Also the French and the Portuguese and the Dutch and Belgians as well. Belgians, a lot of better. There's a bit more of an Eastern European revival almost because end of the Soviet Union and the Cold War, and they're able to travel more, and you've got lots of oligarchs with lots of money, so there's more Russians and Hungarians, a lot of Hungarian trophy hunters now, but it's not an Asian thing, and it's not an indigenous African thing. So you speak to local Africans, they're absolutely appalled, and in fact they're shocked that anyone would want to shoot an animal for sport. And this is one of the great ironies, people are allowed to jet in from the US or the UK, wherever, into Africa to shoot a rhino or an elephant or whatever for fun. People in Africa are not allowed to shoot any of those animals or other animals, even if they are starving. Right? It is prohibited. Right?
I am personally against even bullfighting or even fox hunting, because even if the fox gets to live, it's scared out of its mind. Why do governments allow this? Why isn't there a worldwide upheaval and a cry and a moan that this is evil, it is wrong? Why is it allowed? All these places you've mentioned, and we're not talking about any one administration or one king or one queen. We're talking it's been going on for hundreds and thousands of years, no matter who's in charge. Is it all a matter of money that enough people are getting paid off to allow this to happen? I'm ready to punch somebody out now. Is that what this? I'm an animal lover. I've always been an animal advocate. I don't understand why this is so universally allowed. Please speak to that.
Well, the short answer is you've hit the nail on the head. It is about money. So on the one hand, you have an incredibly powerful trophy hunting industry. So Safari Club International, like other industries, has a very powerful PAC, Political Action Committee, and Super PAC, pours a lot of money into the American electoral system. And so you looked, for example, at the first Trump administration. So the guys who, for example, were the Interior Minister or the Secretary of the Interior, the Secretary of Agriculture, they had received campaign funds from Safari Club International. The majority leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, received funding from Safari Club International. I mean, it has one of the biggest PACs in the US. It's bigger than Delta. It's bigger than General Motors. It's very, very powerful. And for example, it's just we've just had the announcement in the last few days of the new director of the US Fish and Wildlife Service. Well, guess what? I mean, he's a hunter, and he's somebody who, when he was the head of the wildlife in Wyoming, actively promoted wolf hunting, and he removed protections from grizzly bears so you could hunt them more easily, etc. So there's a lot of money there, and an awful lot of money poured into the political system, but also the international sort of conservation system as well. So there's a lot of money from Safari Club International and sister groups like Dallas Safari Club in, for example, the IUCN, the Global Conservation Organization. So, for example, that guy who said the lion's head snaps backward and explodes with smoke from my bullet, he sits on the Lion Experts Committee of the World Conservation Union. I mean,
So the
Right.
foxes are in charge of a chicken coop, is what you're trying to tell us.
That's exactly right. And then the other part of your question, which is why isn't there this sort of huge revulsion, is that they spend a lot of money keeping it quiet. You never see the CEO of Safari Club International speaking to CNN or on Fox News or on MSNBC. You don't see the president of the Dallas Safari Club writing op-eds in the New York Times or the San Francisco Chronicle or the LA Times or Washington Post. They keep it very quiet. What they do is they get others to be their spokespeople. By that, I mean they put money, for example, into the pockets of a small group of academics and researchers, and then they get them to go out and be the voice that's in favor of trophy hunting. And what they trot out at these absolutely extraordinary arguments about how it's wonderful for conservation. Now, how on earth can trophy hunting be wonderful for conservation if the lion population has crashed from 200,000 to 13,500 in the space of just 5 decades? If pretty much all of these species that are being shot are seeing their numbers crash, leopards, elephants, rhinos, they're all in trouble. Do you know, pretty much the only place they're not in trouble in Africa is Kenya. Why? Because Kenya banned trophy hunting in the 1970s. So lion populations are going up in Kenya, elephant populations are going up, black rhino populations go, white rhino populations are going up. You see a pattern. So yeah, they spend a lot of money keeping themselves out of the picture. And instead they get these other mouthpieces to sort of be the voice. And of course, they come across much more credibly than somebody who goes out and says, hey, yeah, I just love shooting them up for fun. I get so much pleasure out of it. That doesn't work really well in front of a general public audience. Whereas if you've got somebody from Oxford University or wherever and saying, we believe this can make a good contribution to the conservation of wildlife and habitats, that sounds much more plausible. But in order to get that, they have to put a lot of money into the system.
Right. So
we have about 8 or 9 minutes left. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah.
Please.
We ain't going to cover all of it in 8 or 9 minutes. I want to bring up a point. So I watched a segment from your 2019 award. The name. Let me get the name right. Animal Hero Awards, where you said that every time these lions are being killed, or any animal, I guess, it's like playing Jenga. You're pulling pieces of DNA out, and essentially, is that making them more susceptible to being killed in the wild, not by humans?
It's a, the killing, it's a quality and a quantity issue. Let me explain that. So when they're shooting lions, they're not just shooting random lions. They always want to shoot the very biggest lions because they're the most impressive. They look best with the head above the wall, above the fireplace or whatever. So they want the very biggest and the best. Well, the consequence of that is you're shooting literally the best genes out of the population. So over the last century, the lion population gene pool has shrunk by 15%. So 15% of the best genes have been lost to the species. And even Safari Club International's own record books, which I've got access to show that lions that are being shot today by its members are quite a bit smaller than the ones that were being shot 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago. Lions are getting smaller. Literally, it's the reverse of natural selection. Scientists call it artificial selection because only the smaller, weaker, less fit animals are surviving. And so scientists or evolutionary biologists specifically have said that the situation is now such that you could shoot just 5% of the remaining adult males, the good trophy males, and that would be it for the species. The line would not be recoverable. We would be seeing the first extinction of a big cat species on Earth since the saber-toothed tiger in prehistoric times. So it's not just the numbers of animals, you're shooting the best. So what that does when you're shooting the best genes out of them and you're removing them, you're making them less able to adapt quickly enough to rapid environmental changes such as climate change. So drought is becoming an increasingly problematic factor in many parts of Africa. So animals and they're more prone to diseases as well, which again are one of the other consequences of climate change. With elephants, you're seeing much the same thing. So the size of elephants' tusks are becoming shorter. You're not seeing the big tuskers anymore, but the average size is less, or the average weight is less as well. Now, tusks aren't just there for decorative reasons. They're there to help an elephant find water under dry riverbeds in drought conditions. Now, if they have shorter tusks, or as you're increasingly seeing, you're seeing adult tuskless elephants, a greater number of tuskless elephants, then they are less able to survive those environmental challenges. And again, they're more prone to diseases and so on and so forth. So it isn't just the numbers that we should be worried about. It's the fact that you have this whole obsession with getting the biggest animal. And this, again, is fed by the industry, which has this record book. So Safari, I mean, there's quite a few of them, but Safari Club International has probably got the biggest one. It's got 200,000 entries of the biggest animals that have been shot by its members, covering 900 different species and subspecies. And
Eduardo, you have, forgive me, I'm interrupting you. I apologize. I just have to get this in before we're done. Yes, I do. You have fascinatingly and brilliantly in this last 56 minutes laid out the problem, the evil, how it's manifested, how it continues. Is there any hope? Is there anything we can do to change this?
Yeah.
We have to give a little bit of that before we go.
Absolutely. And there's one very interesting and positive thing that is happening, which is more and more countries that traditionally trophy hunters have come from that are implementing bans on imports of hunting trophies. And so a number of European countries have done this in recent years. We're hoping to get some more in the next year or two. And even in the US, there's already some partial restrictions, but there's also legislation going through the House of Representatives at the moment, which would ban hunters from bringing back a whole range of animals. So, of course, that would dissuade them from going out and killing them in the first place if their motivation is just to put it up above the fireplace or to build a great big trophy room. So I would say to people, get in touch with your elected representative, get them to support the bill that's going through Congress or going through your legislature in whatever country that you are, because there are bans, there are bills going through right around the world. The second thing is, look, we need to bring this to a total end. We need, I see this as one of the great moral evils of our time. I sort of almost see it in the same moral dimension as, slavery, apartheid, civil rights. It's one of those big issues.
I agree.
And I'm sure that generations, a couple of generations henceforth are going to look back and say, what, they were still doing this in the 21st century? So I am actually proposing, and we're going to be moving forward with a campaign to abolish trophy hunting at the United Nations. We are going to introduce a resolution, and we're not going to win this first time. I'll tell you straight away, because I know we know this from all the battles, the great battles of the past, that you have to fight again and again and again. But you need to start. You need to start the fight. So we're going to take the fight to the industry. We are going to go and say to the international community, do you know what? This should no longer be part of our culture, our tradition, our whatever. This needs to be a distant part of our past. This needs to be a chapter in our history that needs to be closed once and for all. So let's start talking about this seriously. We cannot, in a world that, I used to work for the World Wildlife Fund.
Yep.
I used to be part of a team that produced the Living Planet report. The last report that came out last year showed that wildlife populations have fallen by 70% since the 1970s. Trophy hunting is making a bad situation worse. But even apart from the conservation arguments, it's just plain wrong. It is immoral and it is cowardly. So we've got to boot it into touch.
Right.
Let's make your publisher happy. Who publishes those 3 wonderful books you wrote?
So Green Future Books, and you can buy them all on Amazon, Amazon US, Amazon UK, Amazon wherever you are in the world, and they're all there. So you can just search my name. And some of my previous books will be there as well, including the one of Saving Sally, where we rescued the tiger cub. But the new trilogy, which has just come out, they're on Amazon right now.
So, and just for all our viewers and listeners, all you need to do is check the show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. Eduardo's information is there with all the links to the books, to him, if you have other questions. But I want to bring up something else, like I said, that I saw in that clip where you mentioned, elephants. I'm 53 years old. Mr. Mark's a little bit older than me. I've had the pleasure of walking up and touching an elephant.
Yeah.
I have 2 granddaughters that are 2.5 years old. I want them to have that same pleasure. And if shit don't change, they're only going to touch it, as you quoted, in a book. Let that sink in, people.
That is a crime. I think that is a crime. We are committing a crime against our future generations by depriving them of part of their own natural heritage. This should be part of our global experience, of our experience in life. It's to know that we walk this earth with these amazing creatures. And frankly, my philosophy is that we all have an equal right as fellow earthlings to enjoy the pleasures of this earth together. None of us has a greater or lesser right. Why is it right that we should kill others purely for fun? And I have to emphasize this point, because trophy hunting is not hunting for food. It is killing for fun.
Right. I was going to bring that up. Yep.
Absolutely. So, yeah, obviously, there's loads of resources on our website as well, bantrophyhunting.org. And in fact, I think it's got the details for the books on there as well.
Yes,
and the campaigns
I believe it does.
that we're doing. And look, at the end of the day, people say this, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's true. Animals don't have a voice in our system.
No.
They don't. They can't elect representatives to Congress. They don't get a chance to write op-eds in the Washington Post. It's up to us to do that. We're the ones in charge, if you like. And that doesn't just give us greater rights, it gives us greater responsibilities. And this is the greatest responsibility that we have right now, is to care for our environment, to care for our natural heritage, and ensure that our kids and our grandkids are able to enjoy the wonders that we are so blessed with in the same way we've been able to.
Right. So I want to bring up something else real quick here for our viewers and our listeners. You've listened to Eduardo now for about an hour talk about the horrific things that are happening with trophy hunting. But this gentleman actually was a speechwriter for British politicians overseas, if I'm not mistaken. Well, overseas for us, but in the Middle East, correct?
I ran a government department in the Middle East as well. Yeah.
Right. So you helped save one of the world's most endangered big cats, which was the Iberian Lynx. You have led major undercover operations, like you said, the dog fighting, but a major nuclear accident that was covered up with secret human radiation experiments. So when you talk about a topic, I want our viewers and our listeners to understand that your background in undercover type things, you're legit. You're not just pulling people's legs. You're not just one of these guys that says, I love animals, you shouldn't kill them. There's actually a science behind all of it that pisses people off. And my favorite that I've read, he donated a kidney to your 9-year-old son. And then 2 years later, I believe you won a gold medal in some games. I mean, wow. You are the whole fucking package.
That's very good. My son won the gold medal as well, by the way. Yeah.
Yes, I think I said the two of you.
Yeah, that we did. Yeah, that's right.
Eduardo, I know you've had some health challenges yourself, and it is an honor to know you. It is an honor to meet a man who stands behind what he believes and does his best in that. And you and I share Harlan Bowl as a publicist. I will be sure to let Harlan know what a wonderful guest you are. And if there's anything I can ever do to help you, please call on me.
Thank you. Oh, I really appreciate that. The most important thing is to get the word out. And this show is such a fantastic opportunity for me to help do that, and you getting the word out to your followers and listeners. Because at the end of the day, the reason why Cecil was such a big story 10 years ago was people had never heard of trophy hunting or thought that it was something that had been abolished 100 years ago. And that's why, Jimmy Kimmel cried on his show. That's why Mia Farrow was calling on people to go and turn up at Walter Palmer's dentistry practice, because it was such a shock. But the reality is, tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 animals are shot by trophy hunters every year, and includes some of the most endangered animals in the world. And we've got to tell people about that. We've got to let people know so that they can do what they want to do about it, which I hope is pick up the phone to their member of Congress, or to write them a letter, or to go and meet them and say, this is just damn wrong. And tell you what, my vote at the next election depends on what you're going to say and do about this. I'm watching how you're going to vote. I'm going to watch what you're going to do about this, because at the end of the day, elected representatives, democracy is a wonderful thing, but we've got to use it. And our elected representatives, they are hired by us to represent us, to make the laws, because we're too busy running our own lives, whether it's running radio shows or looking at trophy hunters. So we hire them like we do a plumber or an electrician to do a specialist job for us whilst we're raising our families and all the rest of it. So we've got to tell them, we pay them, we hire them, we pay their wages through our taxes. So it's time that they understood that they are there to do our bidding. And we have to tell them that this is a really important issue for us, and we want them to act. And if they don't, then we won't be voting for them. If they do, they can count on us.
Is there a charity you support, sir, for people who might want to contribute financially to help the cause?
Absolutely. Well, so Banned Trophy Hunting is indeed a charity. And because obviously a lot of our work is research and raising of awareness. So if you go to bannedtrophyhunting.org, then you can support us there. And indeed, you can become a sponsor of Sally the Tiger. You want to help live a healthy, happy life in her wonderful sanctuary that's been created for her. And with her new friend, Attila, there's another tiger that is now there as well. So if people want to support Sally, or they just want to support our work, then they can go to bannedtrophyhunting.org and find out all about us.
And again,
Brilliant,
folks,
and wonderful.
that link, bannedtrophyhunting.org, is in the show notes. So make sure you check the show notes. And I can't emphasize enough, because somebody will send me a message and go, you had this guest on and he said something, Please just read. It's not hard. It's not.
Right.
It's not hard. And speaking of reading, pick up Eduardo's new trilogy. It's on the website. It's in the show notes. It's on Amazon everywhere, worldwide, kind of like us. So you can get the books. I don't want to hear no bullshit. So we have run over on time. We don't want to keep, because it is super late, for the folks that are just tuning in or just listening. Eduardo's coming to us from the UK. So right now it is about 1:08 in the morning. And he took a little siesta or nap or, prior to the show, so that he could be fresh and chipper to tell his story. And we are most grateful for that.
Very, very, very.
Well, thank you for having me on. It really has been a pleasure, and I really appreciate your work and giving me this chance to talk about it.
We appreciate your work, because your work is more important than our work. But together we can get the word out.
Yeah, exactly. And that really is the most important thing, because without awareness, there's nothing. That's the first step. There's no action without awareness.
Right. Mr. Jeffrey Mark, do you have a last question for our guest?
I honestly almost didn't ask questions. I was so fascinated by what Eduardo was saying.
It was a perfect show. I didn't have to say anything.
Yeah, I have no questions other than how can I be of service? So all of you who are watching and listening, ask yourselves the same question. How can you be of service to stop this? And if you're out there and you think trophy hunting is good, and Eduardo hasn't at least caused you to think, then your heart was cut out a long time ago.
Right.
Motherfucker.
Wow. Mr. Mark has dropped more F-bombs on this show tonight than I have ever heard him say since I've met him.
Because
so this touched something, and it wasn't just below the belt.
No. This has been animal rights has been a part of my life since I was a kid, and I didn't know until I researched our show today how bad it still was. I didn't know it was still this bad. And
But this is an issue that should make you angry. That
Yeah.
should make anyone angry. It is infuriating. And I'll tell you something. The laptop that I used to write my books, it nearly flew out the window several times because I would be getting so angry about, for example, I'd be writing up the transcript of a conversation that I'd had, and I'd be so filled with rage sometimes as people would say things in such a matter-of-fact way about how they'd killed an animal and how exciting and fun it was. It really, this laptop is hanging on by its dear life. It nearly went flying through the window. And it's actually an old, big, chunky laptop that I use because, again, I get so angry sometimes when I'm writing that I'm really hammering the keyboard, and most modern laptops wouldn't survive the assault. It should make us furious. That is a demonstration of our humanity if we're able to get angry about this. Because
my vulgarity was my anger, and I felt it was appropriate today.
Yeah, my anger was all through the show, and then my fucking AirPods just died.
Oh,
so Apple, you suck. If they don't last longer than an hour, you suck.
Actually, I'll just tell you one other thing. So you're not alone. So we showed our documentary. We did a documentary about British trophy hunters. We showed it in Parliament to British members of Parliament. So I did my little introduction, and then I went and sat in a row behind some of where the MPs were sat. And I could hear them mumbling as sort of the different horrific scenes, played out. And they were using words quite similar to yours, but they were saying, I could hear them mumbling under their breath as a lion was lured by a bait and was shot at close range and all the rest of it. And I could hear them saying the same words, only quieter. But, in some ways that's a reflection that they got it. And we have to put it's a hard reality, this issue. It's a horrible reality, but we have to put it in front of people. We have to tell them the truth. This is going on, and it's going on every day.
So normally I would ask you a question, we'd close up the show, but you just mentioned a documentary. Is there a place where someone can watch that? Is that on like YouTube, or is that on a website? Give a shout to that, because I will push that to some of our pages as well with the link.
Yeah, that's great. So we have made a documentary. It is now on YouTube, and we're now actually starting to make another documentary. But the one that is on YouTube, that follows our undercover investigation into British trophy hunters. Now, although it's just about UK hunters, the story is a universal one. So you get to actually meet the hunters and see the conversations that we had with them, obviously with hidden cameras, and go inside the trophy rooms that these people have, and go to the estates, and you see the correspondence that we had with them when they're offering us lions, and hear the phone conversations that we had with them, it is almost, it's so brazen the way they talk about it, and that I think will shock people. It's like they really have no shame. They believe that what they do is perfectly normal and acceptable. And I think for the vast majority of people on this planet, they're going to say, what the, and use one of your words. And
I didn't invent those words. Come on now.
No, you didn't. But it's what you were. But you know what? The other thing that's interesting is that regardless of the politics and the money that goes into it, and the fact that this is still going on, people around the world have an almost identical view on it. So the number of people who are opposed to trophy hunting is as strong in the US, right? Despite it having a bigger gun industry and a bigger hunting culture, it's as strong in the US as it is in Western Europe, as it is in Southern Africa. It is a universal loathing. And that actually is a sign that for me is a positive one, in that most of us, the vast majority of us, still have that humanity in our core that recognizes that this is deeply wrong, that it is cruel, it is archaic, it is cowardly, and it is completely and utterly unnecessary.
So
We can't top that.
no, all I can say is stay tuned for Eduardo Undercover, a new TV series where he brings you all the shit. And that's no joke.
That sounds like fun.
But yeah, I can't even top any of that. I can't talk. I have nothing for that.
Just thank you, sir. Thank you for being with us. And thank you for staying up late. And thank all of you for listening to a show or watching a show that might have not been so easy. This is one of the most serious shows I've ever done in my entire career. And I'm proud to be a part of it.
As am I. So with that, Eduardo, where do you like to interact with fans on social medias?
Mostly on X, what was popularly known as Twitter. So our account there is CBT Hunting, Campaign to Ban Trophy Hunting. I'm personally mostly just me. This is my personal account. I'm mostly on Facebook. You can find me. I've got a picture of me with a 16-year-old Staffordshire Bull Terrier that sadly I lost earlier this year, but
sorry.
We rescued a couple of years ago. He was 14. He was deaf. And he'd been abandoned in a house for 10 days without any food and water. And he was the most wonderful, wonderful dog. And I've got to tell you, he kept me sane through all of this. So you can either find me on Facebook, but you can find the campaign on Facebook and also on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter.
These Brits love their X.
Yes. Hey, we're on Instagram as well, so we're everywhere. But, listen, you can find all our social links on our website on bandtrophyhunting.org.
Excellent, Mr. Jeffrey Mark.
Yes, sir.
Where can people find you or interact with you?
They can interact with me on Facebook. You see how my name is spelled. On Instagram, Jeffrey Mark Showbiz. I'm on LinkedIn, and if you like me and you like our host, Ben, also, we do another show. It's very different from this, called Jeffrey Mark Plays Ella, GPE. Every week we play Ella Fitzgerald's music on a theme, and I give you all the insider information about that. We're about to do a 5-story arc special called Jeffrey Mark Plays Merman. So look for those things and the very same networks and platforms that you're watching this. And good golly, what a show this has been. What a show. To leave me vulgar and speechless. Wow.
That's like a good night for you, isn't it, Jeffrey?
It's a good night for everybody else, too.
For us, just check out stilltoking.com. You can find out everything you want to know about us, all the other stuff that we do with the novels and the comic book series and the TV series animations. But every single one of these shows is archived there, as well as a number of other platforms. We want to thank Eduardo for literally taking time out of his 2 days to see. This started at midnight, folks. It's after 1 a.m. He was with us for 2 days. That's how important the subject matter was. Taking time out of all that and being here with us this evening, spreading the message. As always, I want to thank Jeffrey Mark. I thank Jeff Holman, but he's not here. He's on vacation again, which is okay. He'll be back next week. But to all our veterans and first responders, we want to thank you for doing what you do so people like us can come up here and do things that we like to do. Stay safe. We'll see you next week.
Have a happy day.